Slayer, Seasons in the Abyss, 10 tracks, 42 minutes, the fifth studio album from the American thrash band, released October 1990 via Deaf American Records, produced by Rick Rubin, Andy Wallace and the band, recorded at Hit City West, Hollywood Sound and Record Plant in California. This album peaked number 40 in the US, number 18 in the UK, number 58 here in Australia, while charting equally well across Europe, going gold in both Canada and the US as well. This album seems to have been received as the offspring of both South of Heaven and Rain in Blood. That's what it's been sort of perceived as, and would be the last with drummer Dave Lombardo until 2006.
Yeah, I do love this album, but I do have a gripe with it. The guitars weren't captured very well at all on this.
Really?
Very muddy. I thought, well, if you're going to go back to South of Heaven and then compare it to this, production nowhere near as good. For me, the up-tempo stuff, or the thrashy stuff, if you want to call it, just the same problems with Rain in Blood is what I had for their fast stuff. Okay. What saves the album for me is the slower stuff.
Yep.
They are classics, and that's what saves the album and makes it a really good album for me. If it had been a Rain in Blood Part 2 with those types of songs, wasn't as good. It sounded rehashed in terms of, I've heard the fast stuff before, you're not bringing anything new to the table. Okay. And whilst it's a style and a sound, I do want to hear a band progress and add little bits of elements in. You know, I don't need a fast song for the hell of having a fast song that I've heard on 4 albums previous, sort of thing. So yeah, the slower stuff, you know, Expendable Youth, Dead Skin Mask, Skulls of Society, they are really, really good. And where they're placed in the album...
Yeah, that was smart.
It flows really well, and it doesn't lose me. It actually regains my attention. And when we go fast with, you know, for example, Born of Fire or something like that, it's like, yeah, they're good, but it didn't really move me as much as previous, you know, faster songs.
Yep.
Having said that, there is some pure classic Slayer in there, you know, and I can see where it's almost like the band's going, what do we do now that the 90s are coming around? I think it's almost like we've hit this period, we've done something for so long, where do we go from here, sort of thing. And I heard that on that album. I thought it's a little disjointed. It's a little, you know, it's neither here or there for me, you know. I don't know why it gets the credit as much as it does, because I think they've got some better stuff out there, even after this and before it. It's not. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad album.
Oh yeah.
But like the songs I mentioned before, my highlights, the slower stuff is actually what stood out for me. Okay. 8.5 out of 10.
Cool.
Wow. Okay. Much like you, Mick, this is for me the listen where we first the listen and the album where we first start seeing Slayer really start to experiment with the slower stuff. I think as well. Every album before this, from memory, is just balls to the wall thrash from start to finish. A couple of tempo changes here and there, but making slower parts of their songs like the main bit. I reckon this is probably the first time we're actually seeing it for them. I'm like you, I didn't mind it because when they slowed down, you can actually see these guys they're actually pretty good musicians.
Yeah, they can play, yeah.
When you're playing hard and fast and everything like that, I mean, you can mask a lot of, I guess, deficiencies, for lack of a better word. But I think the songwriting...
Yeah, it's easy to hide. If it's just noise,
you
then
can. I'm not saying you
hide.
always do, but you can. There are some bands that play fast and they're fantastic, like Exodus and bloody Creator and Overkill and stuff like that. Fantastic, but there are other bands that sometimes play fast for the sake of playing fast, and if you go see them live, go, no, they're not that crash hot sort of thing. Slayer slowed it down and actually showed a different side to themselves, which I actually liked. Very different. So this is an album where a lot of people, much like Persistence of Time, some people jumped off as well. Yes, it got praised by a lot of people, but a lot of people jumped off saying, hey, this is not the Slayer that
South of Heaven was more divisive than this one for the fan base.
Think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, I'm thinking from memory and stuff, so I'm thinking this is the one where, well, look, people like me almost jumped off.
I think the lyrical content is what saved it. Those slower songs and what they're singing about, it's brutal.
Yeah. Exactly. So. Like Andrew pointed out in one of the earlier reviews, they dropped the whole satanic stuff for this as well, which is they've gone for more the storytelling, the war, the history.
The serial killers.
Serial killers, all that kind of stuff.
Some twisted stuff on this one.
Overall, I mean, I liked the album. Didn't love it, but I liked it. It's not a bad album by any stretch of the imagination. It's a good listen to go through. But again, there are some skippable songs on this for me. But the thing, having said that, when it's good, it's fucking very good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the one or two of my favourite ever Slayer songs are on this. Yeah, there were some of the slower ones as well. But there's a lot of filler on here as well. It's just one that, I don't really go back to it that often. It's not my go-to Slayer album.
Yeah.
Like I say, good without being great. I think one thing I did like about the album, so one thing I will give it credit for, I think the solos on here started sounding a little bit more melodic, a little more thought out, which I like. Coming from that kind of a background, I like that kind of stuff. It just wasn't a flurry of notes like I mentioned before. Yeah. It sounded like Hanneman especially had thought out his solos a little bit more, which I particularly enjoyed. Look, for me, standouts. I mean, I love War Ensemble as an opener. Then some of the slower stuff comes in. I mean, God, I love the intro for Dead Skin Mask. I like the intro for Seasons of the Abyss, how that keeps in there as well. Hallowed Point's one that kind of hit and miss for a lot of people. I actually love it. And also, cool. Expendable Youth, a great track as well. So, look, for me, good without being great, I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
I fucking love this one. The opening statement I made about this being the bastard offspring of the two previous works is about right for mine. This is a great blend of Seasons in the Abyss and Rain and Blood. This one brings back the pace, but it kept the use of melody, which I really enjoyed in this one. The lead solos fit better, which I agree with you on that. It's that, or I'm getting used to Slayer and becoming a fan as I get to this point in time. I don't know which one it is, but for this one, this is cool. Araya was on fire vocally for this one, more aggressive, but not as aggressive as the early stuff.
I think he's actually singing on this instead of just shouting, and that's not a take on him. You know, I think he's actually using melody, using other sides of his voice here.
It's beginning. It continues what he started with the South of Heaven album, where he started to really slow things down and get the singing involved. Yeah. To the point where Kerry King accused him of singing too much on the record, kind of thing, and they've dialed that aspect back a little bit more and gone back to the heavier stuff on this. The band is really tight, really dialed in. I love the rhythm this band has. This pounds you mercilessly, but it's got just the right groove to not make it punishing. And the two lead styles in this, I actually found them to be a really good contrast in the way they were playing the songs. And the songs, for me, were a great blend between the two albums that I've mentioned before. This takes the best bits of both of those albums and really puts it much more forward, this band overall, in my mind. Like I said, I don't know if I'm being converted into a Slayer fan at this point in time listening to this record. This is the one that hooked me. It's not that I didn't like the stuff before. I liked it, but this is the one that just went, okay, now I really get stuck into it. This one has that blend of the brutal and the musical side to this, and I love the rhythm section on this record. That fucking slayed. Pardon the pun.
I see what you did.
Lyrically, I know. It's not hard to find, eh? Lyrically, this is pretty far removed from the early Satanic stuff. This is much more real world. You still get bits and pieces there of the early vibe, but they seem much more observational over the duration. And I like the tack they've taken there. And they've got actually a little bit of a hook here and there in this, which is cool. And I found myself enjoying this one a lot more than I expected. I thought the production was really well done, nothing too complicated. Got all the tones. The drummers might be a bit too far back behind the guitars. I thought the drums were back a little bit. But that said, it works well. When the toms come through, they pounded through the mix really nicely. So it was a deliberate ploy, and it worked well. Much more mid-focused sound overall, I found, on this one. But it was still pleasant and well-balanced. The panning on the guitars was really cool on this too. And as was the double tracking and the layering applied on this, and a little bit of... there's one part of Falling where it's like a kid, and you can barely hear it sort of coming in, and then by the end of the song it's starting to jump through, and that was outright fucking creepy. Well done.
Yeah, Dead Skin Mask.
Yeah. And the track order was bang on for mine too. I thought they really got that right. Got the track order kept the energy going, and it gave you genuine album dynamics for this one too. Yeah. I don't get distracted listening to this at all. This is incredibly well laid out. If you're remotely into metal, this is an album I think you need to listen to. I thought the flow on this is faultless, and I loved how the tracks blended from one into the other on this. If you don't like thrash, this won't change your mind, so don't expect a revelation in this album. It's not going to be there. But if you like riffs and aggression, you're not already over this record, I reckon you need to unfuck that. It's a ripper. I reckon it's one I've been guilty of overlooking for far too long as well. Yep. This had some serious swagger, and I love it. 9.5 out of 10. Wow. Seasons in the Abyss, War Ensemble, Skeletons of Society, and Expendable Youth for my standouts.
There you
Check
go.
it out for yourselves. Let us know what you think.
There we go.
I want to set up a camera to film when she gets like in a meeting with a client and then Slayer is a ringtone. That's what I want to do.